Hello friends, welcome to Star Explainer. Tales of Herding Gods Part 406 explains based on novel. So let's start explanation. Qin Mu looked at the crowd celebrating beneath the sacrificial altar. The chiefs of each clan were mobilizing their clansmen. What are they doing? Qin Mu curiously asked. They are planning to concentrate everyone's power and visualize you together to strengthen your corporeal body and consciousness. Divine King Lang Wo said, "We will grant you power like we did the Grand Emperor. Due to the number of masters of creation who participated then, we can't recreate it. However, we can still boost your cultivation greatly due to the collective worshipping and visualization by millions of masters of creation. It will only take 110 years for your cultivation to reach the level of a strong practitioner of the Emperor's throne, perhaps even stronger. Your corporeal body will also be indestructible as a result." Qin Mu looked at the excited crowd below, and thought about the ancient gods, like Earth Count and Heaven Duke. He shook his head and said, "Although it can grant me power, worshipping me to become a god limits me too much. I think I should cultivate and elevate my own cultivation." In the past, he wouldn't have rejected such large-scale worshipping and visualization of him. However, today, Qin Mu suspected that the ancient gods were visualized by the masters of creation. After all, they were limited by their own great Tao. Perhaps, they weren't limited by their own great Tao, but by the thinking of the masters of creation who created them. When the masters of creation visualized Earth Count, they thought of him as a god of death who was fair. Earth Count thus became an ancient god made out of and restrained by such thoughts. The one restraining Earth Count was his body, which was created by the masters of creation's visualization and thoughts. However, the masters of creation being the creators of the ancient gods was merely a speculation of his. He didn't know the specifics. The reason that Qin Mu had such a theory was due to Divine King Lang Wo's mount, the Rainbow Phoenix. He felt that the phoenix and the ancient gods were in similar predicaments, which made him not want to be visualized by the masses. Divine King Lang Wo glanced at him, and sent out waves of consciousness to notify the chiefs. The chiefs of the various clans heard it and were shocked. However, they had to obey it, for it was Qin Mu and the Divine King's orders. Qin Mu felt relaxed when he saw the masses disperse. There were too many limitations to the ancient gods. One had a body that wasn't one's own. The ancient gods tried so many tricks to get out of their restraints. Wouldn't it thus be stupid for him to voluntarily be restrained? How could you reject the masters of creation's worship? Shu Jun's large head flew over, and he bitterly said, "You missed your chance at becoming the Grand Emperor." Qin Mu smiled. "Becoming the Grand Emperor? My goals are far bigger. How can being the Grand Emperor satisfy me?" Shu Jun felt that it was a pity. He shook his head and said, "You don't know how terrifying the Grand Emperor was. Even if I wanted to be a being like the Grand Emperor, they wouldn't let me. Shu Jun, they created one Grand Emperor already, and that almost led them to extinction. Why would they do it again?" Qin Mu smiled and said, "If I did become another Grand Emperor, what if I too chose to eliminate all masters of creation to secure my reign? I'm the masters of creation's holy infant, not a ruler like the Grand Emperor. Otherwise, what would be the difference between us?" Shu Jun stared at him, but his eyeballs didn't jump out this time. He said, "You actually made sense this time, it's just, are you really that kind? I don't believe it, you're too sly." Qin Mu smiled gently and said to Divine King Lang Wo, "Sister, let them rest, so they can recover their energy and consciousness. After they recover, we shall head to Carefree village." Divine King Lang Wo was shocked as she asked, "All?" Qin Mu nodded. "Yes, all." Divine King Lang Wo frowned slightly and expressed her doubt, saying, "Won't that be too vast and obvious?" She didn't want to say it, but Shu Jun couldn't help but say what she was really thinking, or are you hoping to wreck your ancestors' place? When the time comes, are you sure that your ancestors won't kill you? Qin Mu laughed, shook his head, and said, I want the masters of creation to talk with Carefree Village and Founding Emperor. If I don't unleash our power, even if Founding Emperor agrees to it, his officers might not agree to live peacefully with us. His gaze flashed as he leisurely said, when two giants negotiate, they must be equal. He excitedly thought, it would be best to scare Founding Emperor Witless. Divine King Lang Wo gave him a deep look before informing all of the chiefs to rest their clansmen. Around 5 days later, the Masters of Creation, who participated in the offering, recovered their consciousness to peak condition. Divine King Lang Wo informed the chiefs to mobilize their clansmen to Carefree Village. When that order came, all of the Masters of Creation were excited. They said, as expected of the Holy Infant, he's going to strike at Carefree Village already. Thief Qin has been rubbing me the wrong way for a long time. The Holy Infant is a saint from heaven sent to lead us to eradicate the enemies. We shouldn't be too careless. After all, they have a weird infant with a large head that's super powerful. The Holy Infant can beat him up. Naturally. Qin Mu and Divine King Lang Wo stood on the high ground. Qin Mu saw the Masters of Creation leading their armies and families, and he frowned. The Masters of Creation deployed their divine arts by cultivating consciousness, and used visualization to create their artifacts. Hence, everyone's consciousness and divine arts were different. The same could be said for their mounts. It was normal to visualize beasts like dragons or phoenixes as mounts, but many people visualized weird mounts. The mount of the Zili chief, a giant white silkworm, was already weird enough. Yet there were also large spiders, an 8-legged monster, a feathered snake, a large kraken, and even a god *MN tree. Outside of that, there were various flying houses with legs that were on top of boats and treasure carriages. Some people even sat in a giant egg. There were many more holy objects flying that carried hundreds of Masters of Creation. Some of them sat on planets that had elders pushing them. The elders would jump onto the planet, after pushing it so they would be carried towards Carefree Village. Many more young Masters of Creation had to visualize wings and fly themselves due to their lacking cultivation. Even then, their wings weren't uniform. Some were large, while some were small. Some were long, while some were short. Some even had colorful wings. The elements of the wings were different too. Some had thunder, while others had wind or fire. One pair even gave off flood water via torrential rain. This wasn't what made Qin Mu speechless, however. What made him speechless was how the Masters of Creation marched in a messy manner. They dragged around as if they were fleeing. They didn't look like a force that could scare Carefree Village. Qin Mu was so angry that his hands trembled. He breathed in and whispered, even if we let Imperial Preceptor train them, it would take decades before they became an orderly and useful army. How can such a scattered force scare a powerful ruler like Founding Emperor Witless? He knew how powerful the Founding Emperor Celestial Heavens was, be it in their formations or tactics. The Founding Emperor Celestial Heavens had formed a powerful civilization. The gods and devils that had experienced countless battles had greater control over the battlefield than the Masters of Creation. In a one-on-one, the Masters of Creation were too powerful. However, in a large-scale war, the Founding Emperor Celestial Heavens was far more powerful. There were terrifying beings like Heavenly Teacher Zishi, Yang Yunshi, in the Founding Emperor Celestial Heavens. Scholar Zishi, also known as Yang Yunshi, had the highest attainment in formations. She dared to scheme against 2 Mother Earths by herself, and could destroy strong practitioners of the Emperor's throne like martial arts Heavenly Teacher Guan Cha. Besides, the teleportation formations and divine arts were products of the Founding Emperor era. They represented the highest attainment in algebra at that time. Divine King Lang Wo said, "Don't worry, Holy Infant, you just have to communicate with them via consciousness to get them in a formation and orderly." Qin Mu sighed and said, "An orderly army isn't an army that can't lose. One still has to get them to form various formations, and be skilled in various tactics. They have to form different killing formations between different formations, and every master of creation's divine weapons and divine arts are to become a part of it. It's too messy now." He sighed and said, "If we head to Carefree village in such a messy manner, we will merely amuse founding emperor. It won't be deploying an army, but making a fool of ourselves. Now, we can only try to get them into a formation. However, my consciousness isn't strong enough to deploy all of them." Divine King Lang Wo said, "You can use mine to contact everyone to deploy troops and formations." Qin Mu sighed. "That's the only option." His consciousness was interlocked with Divine King Lang Wo's, and he instantly felt how deep her consciousness was. It was like a vast ocean with no end in sight. When their consciousnesses moved, Qin Mu could feel his vision stretching out to an unknown distance. He could also clearly contact every master of creation as well. Every master of creation's thoughts were also clearly reflected in his head too. Such a strong consciousness was immeasurably deep. With the help of Divine King Lang Wo, it was way easier for him to mobilize every master of creation. He thought, such a way of deployment and mobilization should be spread to eternal peace. This combination of consciousness and vital qi should be spread there too. We could easily forge an invincible army. On the way, he used Divine King Lang Wo's consciousness to order every master of creation, getting them to change formations and adjust them. He got them to abandon those messy visualized items. Instead, he got them to only visualize one thing per formation. For those masters of creation who didn't listen, Qin Mu got the chiefs and elders to restrain them. If the elders didn't listen, the chiefs were to reprimand them. If the chiefs didn't listen, Divine King Lang Wo would handle it. This method of training an army while marching was tough, but by using Divine King Lang Wo's consciousness to deploy the masters of creation, he finally got them to stop running around like headless chickens while marching, after several months that is. Qin Mu now knew why the founding Emperor Celestial Heavens lost so quickly without the command of the four great heavenly kings. It was taboo to change formations and generals when facing a great enemy. The four great heavenly kings of the founding Emperor Celestial Heavens were in control of the army, but they couldn't participate due to various reasons. So the four great heavenly teachers took command, and it led to their defeat. If training an army was so difficult, one could imagine how much more difficult it was to suddenly change formations and generals. It's not enough to be orderly. This formation is meant to scare people only. It's but a fabrication. However, it would be difficult to scare formation experts like Yang Yinshi. Qin Mu's heart was on tenterhooks. Hopefully, she is still at Fengdu and hasn't returned to Carefree village yet. Carefree village, 33 heavens. Founding Emperor came to the parameter world and made a small piece of land into 33 heavens, building Carefree village. Ever since then, Carefree village had been suffering from disasters. The star creators of the Masters of Creation created countless stars to surround the 33 heavens of Carefree village. They cut off all of its paths, and sometimes, stars even crashed into Carefree village. Every now and then, the Sky Supervising Department of Carefree village had to alert the gods to burst the planets and stars to keep Carefree village safe. Every now and then, the Masters of Creation would come out of the stars to attack Carefree village, causing a lot of trouble and casualties. Only when founding Emperor's 107th descendant, Qin Fengqing, came back from the outside world with his parents, did the situation improve. Every invading master of creation was eaten by Qin Fengqing. It was then that the invasion stopped. Now, There were countless stars and debris that locked Carefree Village in. Only a few gods could come out of Carefree Village via boats. In the 33rd heaven, many reports came in. Yan Yinshi, who was dressed like a male scholar, looked at the report and laughed. These masters of creation learned how to deploy a formation. How interesting. Their formation is a mere bluff, though. Their formations pale in comparison to mine. Emperor, have you recovered from your injury? Founding Emperor frowned and said, yes, I have, there's no need to worry about me. This mobilization of the masters of creation seems to be a move to eradicate us. Yan Yunshi smiled. Why are you so worried, Emperor? With me, they can't stir much of a wave. Founding Emperor sighed and said, I'm not worried about us, I'm worried about Qin Mu. I'm afraid that they might sacrifice him. Yan Yunshi frowned and sighed too. He's always like that, obstinate and self-opinionated. He always likes playing with fire and gambling his life. How foolish. That divine King Lang Wo is too intelligent and gutsy to not realize his roots and use it against us. When the army reaches here, they will probably sacrifice him in front of us. Carefree Village is in front. In the center of the Master of Creation army, Qin Mu used divine King Lang Wo's consciousness to transmit his words to everyone. He hollered, Thief Qin is over there. Everyone, put in your best effort and scare him witless. In the void, millions of masters of creation's consciousnesses congregated to form an earth-shattering sound. Scare him witless. Within Carefree Village's 33 heavens, there was an austere atmosphere. The various great armies of the founding Emperor Celestial Heavens had already finished organizing themselves. Their respective generals traversed amongst the formations, yelling out in high voices endlessly to give the soldiers encouragement. The main motive of the 33 heavens in gathering a great army was to protect the citizens that had fled there. There were countless god cities there that were easy to defend and hard to invade. The various branches of the army also had seamless coordination that the ragtag bunch of masters of creation would find difficult to match up to. Yet, despite being a plate of scattered sand, the masters of creation had extremely formidable fighting prowess, and even the adolescent masters of creation were extremely terrifying. By the age of 3, these masters of creation were already capable of fighting and killing dragons. This wasn't something the other races could match up to. Perhaps only an existence, such a son of Yudu Qin Fengqing, could surpass them in the infant state. Everyone was raising their heads to look up towards the sky. There were countless massive planets bustling about in the sky, filling it up entirely. There were whole planets and damaged planets that squeezed together and collided with each other. In the past 20,000 years, the masters of creation invaded them from time to time, causing great death and destruction to Carefree Village. The Dead Star Zone was even more dangerous, as masters of creation frequently hid there, visualizing all sorts of monsters that would invade Carefree Village. They would also visualize all kinds of natural disasters such as tempests, great floods, and hurricanes, making it difficult for Carefree Village to bear such harassment. And right now, they had received news that the masters of creation had actually gathered their entire race for an attack, and were about to arrive at Carefree Village. Even though the 33 heavens of Carefree Village had been forged to become an impenetrable iron fortress over the years, ultimately, the ones who were attacking them were the masters of creation. Could their god cities really resist the invasion of these masters of creation? Suddenly, the sky crumbled and split open. A pair of extremely coarse giant hands poked out from the sky, pushing away the planets, as though they were pushing marbles. Following it, more and more masters of creation appeared, pinching the planets to place them in the distance. The masters of creation grew exponentially in number, and in no time, a large area in the zone of dead stars that encircled Carefree Village had been cleared out. To shift about and change the stars, even the gods of Carefree village wouldn't be able to do that so easily. The expressions of the god generals of Carefree village's 33 heavens grew solemn, and they involuntarily gripped their divine weapons tightly. Cold sweat broke out on the forehead of one of the soldiers, dripping into his eyes, and he hurriedly pulled open his helmet to wipe it away. He was spotted by a general, who immediately chided him, telling him to hurry and wear his helmet properly. In the city, a child was crying before his mother covered his mouth such that he could only make muffled noises. In the sky, an enormous face emerged and scanned through the god cities. "Don't take any action." A god general cried out, "Send my orders down, don't take any action. Wait for the enemy to enter Carefree village. Await my command." The gods that defended the innumerous god cities were growing increasingly anxious. They gathered their vital chi, and behind them, their celestial palaces swayed about. Their primordial spirits, within the celestial palaces, were also at their maximum strength, as they prepared to attack on command. Yet, the masters of creation in the sky gradually faded away. The great army of gods and devils and the common citizens of Carefree village raised their heads to look beyond the sky. As seasoned in battle as they were, at this moment, they still couldn't help but feel somewhat fearful. Beyond the sky, there were countless imposing figures that resembled ancient gods that stood upright in the void. They stood in an organized formation, radiating an aura of murderous intent. Looking from Carefree village, the masters of creation in the sky went as far as the eyes could see. These masters of creation were standing extremely upright, wearing dazzling-looking armor from head to toe, and they each held divine weapons that were obviously stained with God knows how much fresh blood. In addition, those divine weapons were so big in size that it looked as though it would only require one or two of them to destroy an entire god city, completely crushing it into smithereens. What was even more terrifying was that the masters of creation in the sky beyond were separated into different formations, and within every formation, there were different divine armors and weapons. The divine armors and weapons were completely filled with incredibly complicated-looking patterns formed by runes. It was evident that every single weapon had been through countless refinements, and that hidden within them were God knows how many terrifying formation divine arts. Every weapon was the most terrifying killing divine weapon. Within Carefree village, even the general in command of the great army of gods and devils was breaking out in a cold sweat at this very moment, his palms trembling a little. Clang! He heard a noise from behind him, and he turned around to look. One of the soldiers hadn't held onto his divine weapon properly, and it had fallen onto the ground. "Pick it up," he commanded in a low voice. The soldier anxiously picked up his divine weapon, and raised his head to look out beyond the sky. Suddenly, his gaze was fixed, and his mouth opened wide. He was speechless. The general hurriedly turned back, and looked towards the sky. His palm shook involuntarily, and he almost failed to hold on to his own weapon. Beyond the sky, the millions of masters of creation cried out, and behind them, a sea of divine light burst forth as countless large-scale celestial palaces emerged from the void. There was a sea of innumerous celestial palaces, and almost every master of creation had about 3 celestial palaces behind them. Some even had more than a dozen celestial palaces that formed a small celestial heavens. This sight made everyone feel helpless. Although the masters of creation from the parameter world were extremely formidable in their consciousness visualization, and had also accepted the system of divine treasures and celestial palaces, it was quite unbelievable that they had already advanced to such levels. One should be aware that even in Carefree village, only a minority had been able to cultivate a small celestial heavens technique. Yet, it seemed that almost every single one of the millions of masters of creation had already successfully cultivated the small celestial heavens technique. In the pure jade skies, the big-headed weird infant Qin was also completely suited up with 2 large round hammers gripped in his hands. It was a heavy-duty divine weapon that founding emperor had ordered the heavenly workers in Carefree village to customize for him to use against the masters of creation. The armor he wore was also carefully forged. The runes imprinted onto the armor were formations that were designed to target the attacks of the masters of creation's consciousness. When Qin Mu saw this sight in the sky outside, he immediately clamped the 2 round hammers under his armpits and turned around to walk into the founding emperor celestial palace. Princess consort Jun hurriedly followed behind him and asked, "Fengqing, where are you going?" "Tidy up valuables, prepare to escape." The big-headed infant turned around and continued, "Mother, you come too. This is no longer a carefree village. Those tasty things have attacked all the way here, and even I won't be able to defend against them. I might even be eaten by them. Mother, go and ask father to come. We have a ship, we can leave from the back. I will bring you all back to Yudu. Earth Count said that if I return, he'll do everything he can to protect me. Our family can still survive." Princess Consort Jun replied angrily, "Our people are all here, how can we abandon them and escape by ourselves?" Qin Mu scratched his head and replied, "If not, you can also ask them to come along. But not all of them. If there are too many people, I won't be able to ensure the safety of everyone. Also, I don't think Earth Count will be willing to take in so many people." Princess Consort Jun was enraged, and she jumped onto his shoulder. She pulled on his ear and dragged him back as she yelled, "There's even less chance of survival out there. If we defend Carefree village and fight until the end, there's a possibility of survival. Have you forgotten about your younger brother? Your younger brother has been captured by those masters of creation, but instead of trying to save him, you're trying to escape. I feel ashamed for you. Stop pulling, stop pulling." Qin Mu followed after her and walked back to the front of the formation as he cried out, "I'm already an adult now, so stop pulling at my ear. I'm greatly respected by the people of Carefree village, it's so embarrassing when you pull at my ear. Bad younger brother won't die, I've never seen him die before. He's most likely hiding amongst the tasty food and secretly laughing at us." Princess Consort Jun dragged him to the front of the formation as founding emperor was joking with Qin Hanjun and the others, "These celestial palaces, they almost look real, it's scary." Next to founding emperor, the many great experts exuded fiery auras that rushed into the sky, forming all sorts of apparitions, as they inspected the great army of masters of creation. Truly, they look like the real thing. It's a pity that they replicated them too much. Yang Yunshi giggled. There are a total of 14 types of celestial palaces behind these masters of creation. Some of these celestial palaces are even incomplete. Evidently, someone has exhibited 14 types of celestial palaces to these masters of creation to let them visualize them, pretending that it's their own so that they can intimidate us. Qin Hanjun laughed. The divine armor and divine weapons on them are also products of visualization, they aren't real. The runes on the armor of every battalion of the masters of creation, as well as their divine weapons, are also different. There are about 1,000 masters of creation in every battalion, and the millions of them are divided into 1,000 battalions. The armor and divine weapon structures are different for every single battalion. Just to design the structures of the armor and divine weapons would require a vast array of knowledge. This kind of reminds me of someone. Yan Yunshi and the others all nodded their heads and laughed. We are also reminded of someone. Wen Tiange, Heavenly Master Wen. His wealth of knowledge is immense, and he has broad horizons. He's also the smartest man in the world. He's a perfectionist when it comes to doing things. If he was the one who set all this up, he would definitely try his best to design it to its most perfect state. Founding Emperor continued, this is exactly the kind of person he is. Yet this is also what restricts his achievements. His knowledge is too varied, which results in his inability to merge all of the knowledge he has and use it together. This inhibits the growth of his cultivation. Yang Yunshi laughed. Your Majesty may be unaware, but he has accepted 3 disciples, and each of them inherited some of his strengths and flaws. There is one thing in common for all 3 of his disciples: they are all perfectionists. The second disciple is one of you Qin's. Qin Hanjun looked at her strangely. What heavenly teacher she is trying to say is. Yang Yunshi continued, the son of Qin not only hasn't been killed as a sacrifice, but he has actually become the holy infant of the Masters of Creation, and become the leader of the Masters of Creation race. Qin Hanjun cried out, you're suggesting that the one who came up with this setup was Mu? Founding Emperor replied indifferently, the mastermind behind these Masters of Creation is him. He, crushing our borders with a great army, and such a formidable battle formation, this brat is truly audacious. If any of you see him, remember to call him Celestial Venerable Mu, don't treat him as a son of Qin. Everyone was taken aback, not knowing what he meant. Founding Emperor continued, he has the bloodline of the Qin family, but he owes no debt of nurturing or teaching to the Qin family. Moreover, he has already repaid the debt of life to the Qin family. He is, after all, a Celestial Venerable. To call him by his title is to show respect. Qin Hanjun furrowed his brows, sensing that this old ancestor was a little angry. Though it was quite understandable. After all, only a handful of people would be able to tell that the celestial palaces of these Masters of Creation were products of visualization. The rest of them were scared witless by the sight of this great army of Masters of Creation. Even Qin Fengqing was so afraid that he was about to escape. And this was all the result of Qin Mu's doing. How could Founding Emperor not be angry? Beyond the sky, Qin Mu's 14 celestial palaces floated behind him. He made use of divine King Lang Wo's consciousness to send the structures of his own 14 celestial palaces to the minds of the Masters of Creation, so that they could visualize and form them. Xu Jun coughed and reminded him, Holy Infant, are you not worried that you may be overdoing it with this? Is it too much? Qin Mu laughed coldly. When eternal peace most needed the protection of Carefree village, with one command, all of the gods were transferred away such that eternal peace was left to resist the celestial heavens on its own. I don't think I'm overdoing things. He shouldn't have given eternal peace hope, and then taken it all away in an instant. Eternal peace, he. His resentment towards Founding Emperor had never been fully resolved. From the start to the end, eternal peace has always been mere ordinary folks that were abandoned by him. He didn't just abandon us once, it was 2 times. The one who saved the people of eternal peace has never been him, it was first ancestor. He stood up, floating atop divine King Lang Wo's shoulder, as he stepped on empty air to reach the woman's earlobe and said, Sister, your consciousness is boundless. Inform everyone in Carefree village that the divine king and holy infant of the Masters of Creation race would like to have a discussion with Founding Emperor to settle the eternal peace between the 2 races. Ask him if he dares to come forth. Part 406 end here. Thank you for watching.